Guys, in this video we're going to try to tackle the horrendousness that is the wiring in this car. So I feel like part of the reason why it didn't sell on eBay was because it was overpriced, but also is because people were afraid of this. Now, the extent of how bad it wasn't shown or given at all. So it was a lot of a surprise to me, but we're gonna start today with basically the wiring from the firewall to the front of the car. So if you're familiar with Corvettes, you know that the wiring all plugs in to the back of the fuse box right here. Conveniently for us, this is a non-power brake car, so it's actually pretty easy to get to. So you have one side, which is the headlight harness, which runs basically down the fender well, does your horns, does your lights, does your alternator, etc., etc. In this case, in the 73, there's a horn relay and a power junction on the fender. We'll get to that in a little bit. The other half of the wire harness runs this way, and it runs the wiper motor, the distributor, etc., etc. So this is the abomination that I pulled out of the car. In reality, half of the wires just end 6 inches from the plug, and then the other half are spliced and hacked and who knows what. So this, I mean, there really wasn't any repairing this. That's trash. Now we have this brand new one from Electric Limited. That's the only place that I buy harnesses from. We're gonna modify this just a little bit, but weirdly enough, most of this doesn't need to be installed. So these cars had right here something called a TCS, which is a transmission controlled spark, which from what I understand is the distributor advance is dependent on what the transmission is doing. We're not doing any of that stuff. So like the TCS relay stuff's going to get pinned back. The TCS switch to the transmission, that'll stop solenoid for the carburetor is going to get pinned back. We're basically going to use the wiper stuff, the hooded jar, the ignition power, and then obviously the stuff for the starter. All this other stuff we'll use, but we probably won't plug in, and then like TCS, all that stuff can go away. So most of this harness won't be used, but it will be there in case anybody ever wants to put it back to original. Now, if people know their Corvettes, they know that Corvette didn't get HEI distributors like that one until 1975. So technically, originally, this should have come with a point style distributor with an external coil. And with that being said, the wire that goes from the fuse box to the distributor is called a resistance wire. Basically, you can't run 12 volts on a point style coil. You have to lower it with either a ballast resistor or in this case a resistance wire. We're not going to do that because then I have to buy another distributor and points and a cap and a whole nother set of spark plugs, wires, and it's like, no, we'll go the easy way and we won't Bubba it, but we'll fix it so that it works. So the easiest way to do this is basically do it while it's out of the car. So this black wire you see right here is the resistance wire. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop it out of the fuse block, and then we're going to install a different higher gauge wire in there. I believe 10 gauge is what we're going to use. That we will use to run the distributor. Now, it can always be, you know, the wire we add can always be taken out and then put back in. That's not a problem. And then this part right here, not this part, where is it? This part right here, that's supposed to go to the distributor, will just be zip tied to the harness, and then if they want to use it again, they can. That's what we're going to do. Luckily, we have pieces from this that we can take and use. So, as you saw, the last camera died. I dropped it, so we're having a new camera. So hopefully the quality turns out. I've never used a camera like this before, but here we are. So let's see about getting this harness in the engine. As I showed before, here is the old engine harness, and here is the new engine harness. Another good thing I got on eBay was an entire dash harness and a new taillight harness, or I guess used taillight harness for this car, because the one that's in it is basically trash. All right, here underneath, we'll show you what I've been doing for the last hour. So basically, we repaired one side of the harness, which was the light side, but what we're doing is, this is the engine side of the harness, the front harness. So it comes down here and then it splits. So a lot of this is actually not gonna get used, weirdly enough. The TCS, the throttle controlled spark stuff, basically I just zip tied it to the harness. There's parts that go on the engine, there's parts that go on the firewall, there's parts that are supposed to go down to the transmission. We're not gonna use any of that stuff because it's all emission stuff and there's really no need to. So we have it loomed up around the wiper motor and then all the way back down the other side of the engine. Here on the other side, you can see we have the main harness comes down. Here's the ground. This is the wire from the previous video, so don't worry about that one. But we have the main battery cable, we have the main body feed right here, we have the purple S terminal wire here, and then the R terminal wire I've just tied back. Remember, that doesn't go into anything, it's just a dead wire in the harness, so it can just sit there unless somebody wants to put points back in this engine. But other than that, the whole harness is installed. Once we come up from the bottom, it snakes up here and it goes around the wiper motor. So that's the key in installing these harnesses, is they have to go around the wiper motor. You have to unhook it and kind of lay it toward the front and then feed it inside. We have our 12-volt battery power, which we added earlier in the video. These are connectors for the washer pump, which weirdly enough, this one has the wrong connectors on it, so I'm not sure what to do about those, but we can just, you know, lay them there for now. And then it goes around this way. Here's our R wire, which would go to our coil, and the resistor wire, which would go to the coil as well. Again, just tied out of the way. And then the end of the plug plugs into the air conditioning blower motor. It's the ground and the power for that. And then there's a couple extra plugs at the very end that are, again, for the TCS stuff. The harness does come with this really neat diagram, which basically shows you exactly what every end is. So, oh, I forgot to mention the horn relay. There's a red wire that goes up to the horn relay, but we attach that, and then this and all this we just tied up. The ignition coil plus terminal we tied up. The windshield wiper stuff we plugged in. Hood jar switch we plugged in. All this TCS stuff we tied up. We plugged these in, and then we use the battery terminal, the S terminal, and then the ground. So it's a really simple harness. After seeing this, I think I could have probably made one instead of bothering to buy the $200, you know, deal for this, but I didn't have any 73s in my yard, so here we are. All right, so now we're gonna hook a battery up to it and hope we don't die. All right, again, our rear harness is unplugged. I have the key in the off position. I'm gonna turn my fan off so I can hear any kind of crackles or sparks or smoke or all that kind of stuff. All right, so let's see. Now, when we first attach the battery, we're gonna make sure there's no big, huge arcs, because right now, it's all hooked up. Okay. Nothing so far. Of course, we don't have the ignition on, so that's the key. All right, let's see what happens. Oh, the wiper motor turned on. Maybe it just parked itself. Let's see what it does. Okay. All right, so now we should be able to turn the engine over with the key. Nothing. Might have something to do with the neutral safety switch stuff in here, which could be, this could be some of it. I have no idea. Do we need to push the clutch pedal down? I doubt it. You never know. All right, so the neutral safety switch on the clutch pedal is still there. All right, so key now works. That's good. Looking at these gauges, the battery one could work. The oil pressure definitely not, because it's mechanical. Water temp could work, and then the fuel is not hooked up. So we're not gonna worry about gauges right now, but what I kind of want to worry about is headlights and stuff like that. So let's see what happens. I turned on the headlights, so we should have, well, we got something. We got brights and we got blinkers, brights and blinkers, and one marker. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. That's what I wanted it to be. Last, we're gonna check spark. We did have some, you see it? You see the smoke coming out of the wiper motor? So I unplugged it. We'll deal with that later. It wouldn't be my surprise if that was, you know, just totally smoked, but anyway. I know I put the plug in the right way, so it might be jammed. I also know that the control for the wiper motor is gone. As you can see, bye-bye, not there. So the wiring for that, who knows where that went. But we're not worried about that right now. We're gonna check spark. All right, spark's pretty easy. Test light, you put your ground on your alternator, and then you put the power probe in here. So the key is on, so we have power. I turn the key. Huh. So it does shut off with the key in start. It just gets a little weak. So we have power. I probably won't have it starting because I'm missing half of my spark plug wires. So we should probably put those back on. Let's do that. Vacuum link that I'm plugging right now. But hey, it runs off the key. That's a huge accomplishment. Sweet. All right. Well, wiring issues was an understatement. I don't know how much the seller actually knew about how messed up this car was, but more, I just threw it together to resell, is what I see inside of here. The biggest issue is that this dash harness is completely blown apart. There's no, this is the factory wrap. This stuff is supposed to be wrapped up and it's just everywhere. If you look at the one I got, you can see most of the tape still intact. I didn't want to do this, but I think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to swap harnesses, just because a couple things. One, I couldn't get power to the rear lights, and I think the reason is because of this janky, weird, who knows what thing they did right here. Also, there's all kinds of just Mickey Mouse stuff everywhere, and nothing like back here was plugged in the right spot. It was just thrown together, and then over here on the gauges, nothing was plugged in, like zero. So I feel like I think I can just redo it faster than I could going and sorting through this. It's just such a disaster, and luckily it's really not that difficult. The hardest part is just running the harness up over the steering column, but the steering column wasn't held in other than by 2 bolts. The rag joint wasn't even attached to the steering box. It was just completely, it is the fastest column pull I've ever done in my life because it's incorrect. But anyway, we'll get it figured out. All right, fuse box is removed, and weirdly enough, like, you think it's so complicated and intense, but it really wasn't. So you have this top of this box right here. It's screwed in by 2 screws. One of them was missing, and then the neutral safety switch was connected right there, and then nothing else was connected. It all just fell out. I removed the ground. There's a kick down switch on the throttle cable. I don't know how that applies to the manual transmission, but really all that's left is I've got to remove this little anchor point and it all just comes out. This looks like it was taped back. It used to be the neutral safety for an automatic. I don't know if they did that at the factory. Don't know if that's Bubba, but now after we remove this dash harness is out and we can put the new one in. So this is the best way I have figured out how to figure out harnesses. There's the old one, which actually helped me out a lot. So the issue I have with this one is it's so spaghettied out that it's hard to tell what goes where and how it's supposed to go, but there actually is an order to this. So the biggest mystery on this harness was this yellow wire, but luckily I was able to trace and see where it comes out of the block here in the back. It shares a wire with a tan wire, which then tells me that this yellow wire is the key on power for the radio. So I will eventually run a yellow wire down the whole entire harness and get to that. Next, I don't know where that one goes off the top of my head. I'm sure we'll find it. We have the neutral safety switch for a clutch pedal. This little pigtail I took from the other harness. Here is the pigtail for the rear harness, which I've already repaired. We have a door ajar switch. We have a ground for the harness. Here is your driver's side courtesy. Here's your brake pedal switch. This is basically a resistor for that. Here's the headlight switch, which you can tell is not burnt, so that's good. There's no missing wires, unlike the other one, which was completely destroyed, and probably the main reason why it was such a disaster. Speaking of disaster, I put all new fuses in this one because it didn't come with one, but this one, all the fuses were 30 amps, every single one. If the fuse is blowing, that means there's something wrong with it. New, bigger fuses are not going to help. It was missing all of these relays for the seatbelt buzzer. We'll see about these. We'll see. Here is the connection for the speedometer. Here is all your steering column connections. This on the other one wasn't used. It was also taped back, so I don't think that goes to anything. We will have to check. Here is the wiper connections, the wiper switch connections. These are all the connections right here. Oh, I missed the tack. That's a tack. I need to attach the ground end to that. There is a missing courtesy or interior light part on this. This is for the center console. All the pieces are there. This is what's left of the radio harness. Pretty normal. Again, I have harness pieces from the old one to fit with this. And then after that, we have pretty much everything for the center console. Most of this I actually was able to steal from, like all of this came with the other harness, which is good because I would be missing it if I didn't have it. And then here we have this part which goes onto the passenger side of the dash. We have a relay with a flasher, and then we have the courtesy lamp, and then the door ajar switch. So basically, I just need to make 4 or 5 new ends, new tape, wrap it all up to the top, and we should be good. I don't see why this wouldn't just plug in and work exactly like it should. Here's the final product, all wrapped up. All the little pieces fixed. I used almost an entire roll of electrical tape. But once it's in the car, we'll see how good it goes. See how good of a job I did. All right, here's a moment of truth. For the most part, the harness is installed. The dash pads are back in, so we're going to, hopefully the car isn't burned down, we're going to connect the battery. My opposite cables here. See what works and what doesn't. All right. All right, no big pops or arcs. Oh, that's a good start. All right, I guess let's start around the outside of the car. We got headlights at least. We had headlights before. Got a marker. That looking good. All right, let's go to the back. Before we had nothing because the back was just trash. Oh, we got a marker light. Got a tail light. Another tail light. We got a marker light. All right, let's see if the brights work. Oh, look. You have the light in the dash that actually works. That's good. You know what? These bulbs are burnt out. These are bright specific. And these have 2 filaments, one for low beam, one for high beam. These are just high beam. Not worried about that because I feel like they worked before. I don't know. I can't reach it. There we go. They might just be trash. That's an easy fix though. All right. Exterior wise, we're good. Let's see what happens when we turn on. Hey, look, headlamps. Let's see what happens when we turn the key on. All right, listen for pops, smoke. All right, that's the key on. Look at that. We got blinking. We got blinking. Blinking really fast. Might need a flasher, but that's okay. All right, let's try the other side. Oh, blinking. Look at that, it's coming alive. All right, let's try the horn. Oh, the relay's going. That means it's either wiring or the horns just need replaced. I'm not worried about that. Let's do gauges. So this whole cluster is from a later car, probably 75 or 6, because it has an electronic oil gauge. I'm gonna swap that out with the regular one that's in it, but they look like they're showing what they're supposed to show. But again, we won't know until we get everything hooked up and the car running again. But the big test is this. Oh, it turns the engine over. All right, that's awesome. All right, guys, well, we made progress. I don't feel like this car will burn to the ground like I thought it was going to before. If you guys remember what the harnesses looked like, it was absolutely just trash. But we got super lucky that the $80 harnesses I bought on eBay were actually able to be repaired, and it seems like they work really well. So a couple more things to button up, but I'm gonna call the wiring on this car fixed, all done. So we will see you guys in the next video where I try to get this car to actually run down the road. So that's gonna include brakes, that's gonna include suspension, and then kind of jerry-rig this automatic transmission to work. And then once I drive it around and know that it's good, it's coming out. Because you know what I'm gonna put in? That. All of that is going back, and this car will go back to what it needs to be.